everybody. Call this meeting of the Transportation Circulation Committee to order at 5:30 p.m. Could I get a roll call, please, for attendance?
Committee Member Bickford. Committee Member Bickford. Oh, Committee Member Blackerby.
Here.
Committee Member Metzenberg.
Yep, here.
Committee Member Rodriguez.
Present.
Committee Member Smith.
Here.
Chair Bakke.
Here.
Vice Chair Siegslag is absent.
All right, great. Ms. Grant, do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do not have any changes to the agenda.
All right. Well, we'll start with general public comment. If anyone wanted to make a public comment about something that isn't on our agenda this evening, please make your way to the podium and go ahead.
We
Caretaker.
have no speakers.
All right. And I assume none online as well. Do we have any announcements, Ms. Grant?
Yes, I have a few announcements. The first, I was just verifying the State Street Master Plan goes to City Council next Tuesday for final adoption. So thank you again for providing the comments. And I believe the agenda just got posted and staff report and I think the plan. So just want to let everybody know you're always welcome to attend the meeting as a member of the public. And I think if there was, I could coordinate with Chair Bakke. But we did, with the meeting minutes, take pretty detailed for the comments, but we could also just share that for the record, and I can just have that relayed through the State Street Master Planner for that. And then the second item was that the Safe Streets for All Action Plan was officially adopted by City Council on July 28th, so that's exciting. And then we're just in the process of updating the web page for it just to reflect that it was adopted. And we are interested in we have some grant monies left for the effort, and so we're interested in applying for just a time extension to finalize some of the data dashboards, because that came up during the reviews. We had the static maps, but we wanted to have the data dashboards up and just give us a little bit more time on that. So I should know that by our next meeting, if that's continuing. And then the third announcement and final announcement I have is parallel for the Vision Zero education campaign, just to educate for traffic safety, which we also blended into the Safe Streets for All Action Plan at some of the meetings for feedback from the public on certain topics to message. We are officially going live on Monday. And so the first message to kick everything off is just really pointed at all modes on how collectively we can make our streets safer, whether you're walking, biking, or rolling or driving. So it's really exciting. We have an outreach coordinator with Public Works, and she's helping also send out that messaging not only through our city news and brief, but next door, and working with the schools so they can also be posting those messages as well. And the time frame right now would just be monthly messaging. So we have a calendar of what that would be in certain time for that. So I'm just so excited because we've been talking about it for so long, but it's actually happening this Monday. So make sure you're subscribed to City News and Brief for next door if you haven't already. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you and congratulations to staff, and extend that to Tess and the team on State Street as well. You know, a lot of work put into that. All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda and approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any changes? All right, hearing it.
I move approval.
You move approval? All right, good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion is carried. Ms. Grant, could you please introduce our first item?
Yes, happy to. We have 3 items tonight, and kicking off the first item is the De La Vina pilot restriping project between Padre and Valerio Streets. With that, I'm going to hand it off to our principal traffic engineer, Derek Bailey, to take us away on this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Good evening, everyone. As Ms. Grant mentioned, my name is Derek Bailey. I'm with the city's traffic engineering group in the Public Works Department. This is a really interesting project. It goes, from my perspective, it goes a little bit deeper than just a restriping project because it involves having a conversation about trade-offs between congestion and safety. And what's an appropriate balance between the two? So we'll talk a little bit more through that. So what is the restriping project and why are we discussing it this evening? De La Vina Street was restriped between Constance and Padre. Padre is 1 block north of Mission Street back in 2021. And after that was completed, the community south of Mission Street they asked for the project to be extended further south. They wanted to share in the safety benefits that that section that had been restriped north of Mission Street was experiencing. We stopped that 2021 project intentionally at Padre Street north of Mission Street because at the time we thought it was going to cause congestion. And we weren't really comfortable with that. But since then, traffic patterns have changed. Traffic volumes are down about 10% compared to what they were before the pandemic. So what we didn't really feel was possible before the pandemic when we were planning the first segment of the restriping project now is becoming more possible. There's still some trade-offs that we should talk through. And our opportunity to do the restriping is coming up because De La Vina Street's going to be repaved in 2027 from Constance down to about Mitchell Traina Street. So this is the right time to talk about it. So I'm going to read through the staff recommendation just for the record. That the TCC review the proposed De La Vina Street pilot restriping project and recommend to the City Council to approve a pilot project to restripe De La Vina Street from Padre Street to the 1600 block of De La Vina Street, which is between Valerio and Arriaga Streets. The project will extend the existing configuration of 1 traffic lane and a buffered bike lane from Padre Street to the 1600 block. The recommended configuration includes a longer southbound right-hand turn lane at Mission Street, which will result in the loss of 2 on-street parking spaces. And I'll just refer you to the map on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see the dashed red line. That was the section of De La Vina Street that was restriped in 2021. So from Constance down to Padre, just north of Mission. You can see the solid red line. That's the section we're talking about this evening from about Padre Street to the 1600 block between Valerio and Arriaga. And then it's our recommendation that once we get to Arriaga Street, it open back up to 2 traffic lanes and that continue as it is today down to Carrillo Street. So before we dive into some of the technical traffic data, just what is De La Vina Street? How does it function? How should it function? What are some of the demands on De La Vina Street? It's an arterial route. It's a very important street in the city. It carries heavy traffic throughout the length of De La Vina Street. Provides direct access to businesses. It's a key transit corridor. And it's an essential roadway for emergency access, especially connecting Cottage Hospital to the downtown area. At the same time, it's a residential street with high volumes of people walking, biking, and crossing the street. And the curbside's very well used for on-street parking, loading, and deliveries. And these uses aren't necessarily compatible with one another. When we think about De La Vina Street, the majority of it through the project area that we're talking about is lined with residential. And so De La Vina Street, when we look at some of these first few characteristics, that kind of suggests De La Vina Street should be a higher order street, more efficient, more capacity. But when you look at some of the characteristics involved with being adjacent to residential, it kind of suggests more of a quiet residential street. Can't be both, so how do we strike a balance between that? So the Upper De La Vina Street restriping project, the first one back in 2021, as I mentioned, was from Constance down to Padre. And there's a Google Street View image of the finished product looking south from Constance. So you can see there's still parking on both sides of the street, traffic lane, and a buffered bike lane. The traffic lane was scooched in towards the center of the street by a few feet, so the traffic on the left-hand side, there's a bit of a buffer between traffic and the parking aisle now, so that's been really beneficial. We've heard good feedback from the community that that's resulted in a lot less side mirrors getting knocked off. Have similar restriping projects been done? And the answer is yes. We've done 4 other restriping projects since 2020. The photo on the left-hand side, that's on Chapala Street. That was done in 2022, so that's 1 block over from the project area that we're looking at. So I'll just point out here, I can see my cursor. In 2021, that's the Upper De La Vina Street restriping project that we just talked about. And I'm also going to point out the maximum hourly traffic volumes. So Upper De La Vina Street, that was the highest that we've done to date, and that's 710 vehicles during the PM peak hour. You can see Chapala Street was done in 2022, and Acapa Street in 2020, that had 515. Lower De La Vina Street also in 2022, and that had 580. So these 4 streets that are in black, they're all a little bit different than the project area that we're talking about this evening. Every one of the streets that we did back in between 2020 and 2022, they're all free-flowing. So there's no stop signs, there's no traffic signals that impede traffic along any of those corridors. This one is a little different because there are traffic signals that interrupt traffic. And so going back to 2021, why did we stop at Padre Street? Well, it's because of the traffic signal at Mission Street, and we thought that point would be a potential point of congestion. So even as we look at it this evening, that Mission Street intersection is what we're most concerned about in terms of potentially causing congestion. Benefits and trade-offs for this project, some of the benefits, reduced high-end speeds on Upper De La Vina Street, the section that's been restriped. We saw some good speed reduction and collision reduction on Upper De La Vina as well. We would expect the same here over the long term. Extend the bike lane, easier for pedestrians to cross 1 lane than 2. It eliminates that double jeopardy condition where 1 vehicle stops for a pedestrian and a second vehicle can potentially pass, and that's a big safety issue. As I mentioned, buffers for people entering and exiting their parked vehicles and more space between the traffic lane and parked cars, and a better buffer for people pulling out of their driveway. Some of the potential trade-offs, longer queues during PM peaks. The queues may not clear. Fewer gaps in traffic between the traffic signals, so you can think of the traffic that's currently in 2 lanes being concentrated into 1 lane. So if you're trying to cross De La Vina Street at one of the cross streets, there'll be fewer gaps in traffic. And as we mentioned, parking removal, those 2 parking spaces just north of Mission Street that would have to be removed.
Derek, just a quick pause. I just wanted to reflect for the public record that Vice Chair Schliessig is now present for the meeting at 5:44 p.m.
Thanks. So our past approach to doing restriping projects and going from 2 lanes to 1 lane, we've really aimed for no noticeable delay or change in travel time, kind of a do no harm in terms of traffic flow approach. Try not to create excessive queues. Traffic should clear every cycle. This project's different. This project will create some congestion during certain times of the day, so that's a departure from what we've done in the past. And the question, as I mentioned, is really how to balance congestion and safety, and we've really wrestled with this one. We started studying it back in 2024 in response to some of the requests we were getting from the community. We studied it, and we actually put it on the shelf for a while last year because we were not sure how well this would be what the community response to this would be, but we've talked it over and we think a pilot project is the right way to go. The congestion, it's potentially going to be during a very short time of the day. So the vast majority of the day is going to be congestion-free, but there is potential for it during really short, concentrated times of the day. And those short, concentrated times of the day is what we were uncomfortable with. So just to go through our what we did for a traffic study, we did a lot of traffic counts. We did 10 turning movement traffic counts at Mission Street and half a dozen at the Arriaga Street intersection. We did a computer model, and then we actually did a field study as well. You can see the picture in the lower right-hand side. We actually went and closed a lane on 3 separate days just to see how traffic would do. Drivers behave a little bit differently when you do that sort of thing. When you set up a work zone with cones and barricades, they tend to drive through it a little bit more cautiously, a little bit more apprehensively. So that affects traffic flow. So it wasn't a true representation, but it was very informative in terms of what the ultimate lane configuration would be to minimize congestion. So if we just look at the existing configuration north of Mission Street, you can just see, it's kind of hard to see here, but in the upper part of the picture, that's Padre Street. That's 1 block north of Mission. As you go past Padre, there's 1 traffic lane and the bike lane. And then as you go down the block towards Mission Street, that's when it opens up to 2 traffic lanes. That's today's configuration. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, that image is today's configuration as well. So there's a through left lane, a through only lane, and a right-hand turn lane. So with the changes, there would be switch over to the right-hand side of the screen, there would be a left-only lane, a single through lane, and a right-only lane. So if somebody wanted to go straight down De La Vina Street, it would just be in that 1 lane. Okay, so now let's look at traffic volumes, and this is really what it boils down to as far as how the street is going to perform and why we recommended not continuing this project through the Arriaga Street intersection. Arriaga Street also has a traffic signal, and it's free-flowing between Mission Street and Arriaga Street. So as I mentioned, we counted De La Vina Street 10 times. We found a pretty wide range of traffic volumes. It's not the same day to day. There was one day, for example, that we counted as few as 391 during that PM peak hour. That's the busiest hour of the day. And there was one day that we counted 537. So that's a pretty big difference. You also notice there's a pretty heavy right turn movement going from southbound De La Vina turning right to go towards the freeway. So this 537 that we counted on that busiest day, that's pushing the upper limit of what a single lane can work at a traffic signal. So then if we go over to Arriaga Street, the overall traffic volumes are the same, but the division of what they're doing at the intersection is much different. So the vast majority of traffic at Arriaga is going straight. There's much less traffic turning off. So when I mentioned over at Mission Street, that 537 is really the upper limit of what a single traffic lane can handle at a traffic signal. You can see at Arriaga Street, because all that traffic is wanting to go straight, the through traffic volumes are much higher there. And so the potential there to create congestion is even higher than at Mission Street. That's why we're recommending stopping that 1 block short of Arriaga Street.
Is there a traffic signal at Arriaga?
Sorry.
There is a traffic.
At Arriaga Street? Yes, yeah, there's a traffic signal at Mission Street and then a traffic signal at Arriaga, and in between there's 4 blocks that are free flowing. So the traffic study results, the computer model and the field results didn't match. And as I mentioned, just drivers were going through the field test a lot more tentatively than we expected. And we couldn't exactly replicate with cones and barricades what the ultimate lane configuration would be. So there was a little bit more congestion in the field result than the computer model suggested. The real answer is probably somewhere in between, but kind of the bottom line is we think it's going to work the vast majority of the time. At Arriaga Street, slightly more congested than Mission Street for the reason I just mentioned, that through traffic movement is quite a bit higher. So this illustrates what the lane configuration just north of Mission Street should be to minimize the potential for congestion. As I mentioned, there was a really heavy right turn movement from southbound De La Vina Street to go towards the freeway. So to keep those southbound right turners from joining the back of the queue and contributing to the length of the queue, we would just want to have a really long right turn lane so they can bypass that queue. But because of that long right turn lane, that's where these two parking spaces just north of the intersection would be affected, and they would have to be eliminated in order to get that really long right turn lane. But having this lane configuration really minimizes the possibility for congestion. So then just some of the expected changes at Mission Street as far as queue lengths. There's average queue lengths and then there's maximum queue lengths. So when we look at like a PM peak hour, which is usually 4:30, 4:45 to 5:30, 5:45, even within that hour, there's a peak. So there's a peak within the peak, so to speak. And that's usually between 5 and 5:15. So between 4:30 and 4:45, or 4:30 and 5:30, 5:45, the existing queues are usually somewhere between 5 and 6 vehicles deep. They'd probably go from 6 to 8. But during busy times, that peak of the peak, it would go from 8 to 10 to 12 to 16. So that's that 5 to 5:15 time period that we would most likely notice that. The capacity, the number of cycles per green that can get through is about 16. So the queue length should clear every time. I say should. Even within that peak, there's little surges in traffic. So it is possible that during that 5 to 5:15 time, some drivers might have to wait more than one light to get through. But on average, people should get through. At Arriaga Street, if the project were to be extended through Arriaga Street, and remind you, we're recommending that it not, existing 3 to 4 vehicles would go from 5 to 8, and kind of that maximum, the peak of the peak would go from 5 to 6 vehicles to 13 to 15. The numbers may seem similar to Mission Street, and they are. But the reason we're recommending that it not include Arriaga Street is basically what the drivers experience. So if you're driving down De La Vina Street from Upper De La Vina Street, say near Trader Joe's, you go through the traffic signal at Alamar, it's free flowing until you get all the way down to Mission Street. So you've gone over half a mile without being interrupted. Most drivers have a tolerance for stopping, and they understand that at a major intersection like Mission De La Vina, it's probably going to be a little bit more delay. But once you get through that major intersection, the lights currently, they're all timed so you can get all the way down to Carrillo Street without having to stop. The flow's pretty nice. If we were to extend this project through Arriaga Street, what the drivers would experience is they would get through De La Vina Street, where they're tolerating that little bit of extra delay, and they would join the back of the queue at Arriaga. And then they would take a little while to get through Arriaga. They should make it through on the first green. And then for each successive intersection down the line that we extend this one lane cross section, drivers would be join the back of the queue, get through the intersection, join the back of the queue, get through the intersection. And so we think that's a pretty big departure from the way De La Vina Street functions today, and we're not so confident that the community would be supportive of that overall. So that's why we're recommending that it end north of Arriaga Street. This graph, fun traffic engineering graph, but this shows the amount of capacity at the Mission Street intersection that's being utilized. And this matters because it's a really good predictor of the times of day where there is the potential for drivers to have to wait more than one light to get through. Green is good. Green is highly unlikely the drivers will have to wait. So it's when you get above 70% of the capacity that's being used, there's a slight potential. So that's right around lunchtime. Orange, a little bit higher, so just as school is getting let out. But then, as I mentioned, between 5 and 5:15, there's a surge in traffic, and that's when you get to about 85%, that's when traffic is most likely to probably have to wait more than one cycle to get through. And this, 5 to 5:15, is 81%. So it's below that 85% threshold, but it's getting close to it. So we do think it will happen from time to time. And again, just to summarize what we're recommending, that the pilot street extend the one-lane section that we described from Padre to south of Valerio Street. And then once it gets to Arriaga Street, it would continue, or no change from current conditions, 2 lanes down to Carrillo Street. The pilot project, when the street is paved next year, the way we would do the pilot project is we would do the striping with thin pavement markings, paint. We wouldn't use really durable pavement markings, so they would start to wear off, and they could be easily removed to revert back to the way it is today, or more permanent markings could be applied depending on the results of the pilot. What the pilot project would look like a year from now is we would basically repeat the same process that we're going through right now. Traffic studies, we would do a before and after comparison to what people are experiencing on the street. Are we seeing significant delays? Are we seeing more cycling activity? A year's not really enough to get a good long-term trend for safety, but we would certainly report on if there are any changes in the collision record. And then we would do some public engagement meetings, return to the TCC, and ultimately make a recommendation to City Council to either revert back or keep the project. We did look into an alternative to restriping, and that would be a new traffic signal at Islay. As I mentioned, there's a 4-block free-flowing stretch from Mission Street down to Arriaga. Islay is smack dab in the middle, so 2 blocks from Mission, 2 blocks from Arriaga. The lights could be timed. The lights are currently timed from Mission down to Arriaga, that if you drive 25 miles an hour, you'll hit the green wave. But because it's 4 blocks unimpeded, some drivers are driving inappropriately fast. An additional traffic signal in the middle of that could promote more orderly 25 mile an hour speeds. It would be an additional cost of $100,000 though, and that's not something that the city has available at this time, but it could be considered in the future if the pilot project is not successful. And just long-term considerations as far as the traffic demands that we're projecting in the future. If we think of the Upper State neighborhood and the downtown neighborhood, they're both neighborhoods that are ripe for redevelopment and intensification. And so with that intensification comes the potential for higher travel demand between the 2 neighborhoods. And chances are, if you're driving between Upper State Street and downtown on surface streets, you're either on De La Vina Street or State Street. They're really the only 2 streets that connect Upper State Street with downtown, unless you're weaving through a neighborhood or on the freeway. And then just one thing we noticed as we were doing our observations and traffic studies, this is a photograph of when we had the lane closures and we were simulating what the pilot project would be like. This happened a number of times. The light turns green, the queue starts moving, except that one vehicle back there. Chances are they're on their phone. So we're noticing this more and more around town, and this is affecting the capacity of and the efficiency of our street network, is people not paying attention to the lights when they turn green. So don't be that person. We did have two community meetings 2 weeks ago. We did one virtual, one in person. So we had an information table set up at the intersection of Mission and De La Vina. We received some really good feedback, a lot of support for the project. And kind of what we heard from the people that did attend is we should be taking it even further than Arriaga Street. And the people south of that 1700 block, they felt like they really want to share in the safety benefits that the pilot project would bring to the street. And there were some requests to take the pilot project all the way to Creo Street. The paving project next year ends at Mitchell-Terena, so that's really our blank canvas, so to speak, that we can work with for now. But just know that there are people in the community that would like to see it go all the way south to Creo. Next steps, we are planning to take this to City Council on October 27th. They'll be the ultimate decision maker for the pilot project, but the TCC's recommendation will be included. The pavement maintenance project, as I mentioned, it's going to be in early 2027. It's following on the tail end of the Upper De La Vina Street crosswalk project that's in construction right now. So there's been a water line replaced, there's been a gas line replaced on Upper De La Vina, and we're working on the crosswalks right now. So I think the community's ready to be done with construction. But we do want to leave the street in a state of good repair. It's not, the pavement's got a lot of cuts in it right now from all the utility work that's been done. So the paving will be welcome. And then, as I mentioned, reevaluate in about 1 year, which would be 2028. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
All right, we will now move on to committee questions. And then we'll do public comment, and then we'll make our comments on the project. So, Committee Member Bickford.
Is funding for the pilot project already done?
Committee Member Bickford. Yes. So the pavement markings, there will be pavement markings that go back in at the tail end of the paving project. That's built into the paving project. The additional funding would come a year later, when the decision is made to either revert back to existing or to make permanent. So that cost is between $15,000 and $25,000, and yes, the funding's in place. There would be an additional cost above and beyond for green pavement markings if the project is made permanent and green pavement markings are desired. So that would be about an extra, is it $45,000 or so? So including pavement markings in year 2028, green pavement markings and making permanent would be between 15 and 60.
Okay. My second question, this may be naive, but with regard to the potential congestion at the traffic light, is it not unreasonable to merely adjust the timing at that particular time of the day?
That's a great question. Thank you. I didn't know how long to make this presentation and how much to dive into the weeds, but yes, what we looked at takes into consideration optimizing the traffic signal timing and balancing the delays, so to speak, on both De La Vina Street and whatever the cross street is. And so with Arriaga, to be specific, because that demand to go through is higher than at Mission Street, it would need even more green time than at Mission Street. And that means more green time on De La Vina Street, less green time on Arriaga Street. Arriaga has a pretty high demand during the PM peak hour with people trying to get to the freeway. And so in order to make that intersection as efficient as possible, we would have to put some turn lanes in at the Arriaga Street intersection, and that would result in the loss of 8 additional parking spaces. And so that comes into balancing the timing and making the intersection as efficient as possible. The results we shared with you on here, that assumes that all those turn lanes are in and that parking is removed and the traffic signal timing is optimized. So even with all that, those are the delays we'd potentially be looking at.
So in order to not have an unacceptable queue, you have to remove parking spaces for a turn lane.
Well, and I think it depends on what the definition of an acceptable queue is, but even with the parking removal to create the turn lanes and the optimization of the traffic signal timing, we're still looking at queues potentially of 15 plus vehicles during the PM peak hour. And so when we were looking at this, just from the totality of the trade-offs in terms of congestion, travel time, the driver experience, the parking removal, we didn't feel as though that would be something acceptable to the community. We have a saying in our department, we try to build the trust and high regard of the community. And so this is why we really struggled with this project and even put it on the shelf for a little while last year, because we weren't sure how well it would be received by the community. There are definitely safety benefits to be realized by extending the restriping configuration to the 1600 block between Valerio and Arriaga. Our fear is that if the pilot project goes well in this section, if the project were to be taken further as a pilot project and the upper part performed well and the lower part near Arriaga did not perform well, the whole thing would be viewed by the community as a failure.
I see that.
And so that's what we wrestled with. And so from our perspective, it would be better to do the pilot project to the 1600 block if it goes well and there's still community demand, then test the community's appetite to extend it rather than extending it as far as possible from the get-go, knowing that some of those lower intersections, especially at Arriaga and Mitchell Trana, would be the same thing if it were to be extended even that far. Knowing what we know, that the potential for congestion at those intersections.
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, thanks. That's all good stuff. Does your computer model include the surrounding area and assume that drivers are learn from experience? I know that sounds like a lot, so I'm guessing no. But.
Are you saying that if drivers have a less than positive experience, they'll find a different route?
Yeah.
No, it just assumes that whoever's using De La Vina Street continues to use De La Vina Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a very, this isn't comment,
Yeah.
so I should stop.
The reality is that whenever you do a traffic reconfiguration, there's probably going to be some kind of rebalancing. As I mentioned in the past, we've tried to limit that because when traffic diverts somewhere, so who wants to be on that street that it diverts to? The two potential streets are Castillo and State Street. So again, that's another reason that we're trying to be very cautious as we proceed here, is to not divert traffic to those other streets because nobody wants additional traffic on their street.
Yeah, I always go all the way over to Anacapa, just by the way, if I'm driving, coming here, I was going down De La Vina and I could turn left on any street I wanted to.
So, I have some things to say for comments, but I'm just a little confused. So, the point of this project is safety. Okay. There's not a whole ton of that in this. I know we've talked about it before, but just, it's kind of just about congestion, it seems like. From what I hear, and just correct me if I'm wrong, there's, the trade-offs are congestion versus safety improvements, right? If it were to be extended, right? The recommendation is to go to Valerio or just past Valerio. But the question of taking it further, and it may increase congestion a little bit, but an acceptable amount at Mission, right? Is that what you're sort of saying, if you just go to Valerio? Right, okay. But if you were to extend to Arriaga, or dare I say beyond, because of course connecting it to Sola Bike Boulevard would be compelling to me, a layperson. The risk is higher congestion that will still probably clear the queue for a portion of an hour a day.
The potential for congestion is more frequent at Arriaga.
Okay.
So still the majority of the day, the queue would clear, but it will be a little bit more.
One thing you said that I don't know if it's really accurate. And that is, you said that the alternatives to go downtown are either State or De La Vina. I think, did I hear that right?
State and Castillo, those
Oh, I
are
didn't hear Castillo.
those are the two most immediate parallel routes to De La Vina Street, but there are other routes to get downtown.
And it was also in the context of just looking at the city at a whole and realizing like the Upper State Street neighborhood and that's going to be changing of what we've seen in the land development world. And so we do anticipate increased traffic in the future, but that's the State and De La Vina are the most typical routes when you're going back to Upper State Street neighborhood. It was just in context.
Okay, maybe I misheard it, but in my personal experience, because I live in Hidden Valley and I drive across town a lot and go downtown a lot, I don't use De La Vina, I don't like it anymore. I take Castillo and then cut across farther down, or I go all the way to Anacapa. I think we had a comment like that down there. So I don't think, and I don't know, maybe it's people who haven't lived here for a long, long time, but I don't even think of State because I know it's going to stop. I'm going to get a few blocks and then I'm going to have to go over someplace anyway. But I don't know. I guess I didn't really hear you say Castillo because that's now becoming one of my favorite streets.
Yes. And to clarify, once you're in the grid, then there's lots of choices. It was particular going to the Upper State Street area because for Anacapa, for example, does not connect to the Upper State Street neighborhood, San Roque. So you have to go in, either using State Street or De La Vina to then pivot to the rest of the grid.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Derek, I always really love hearing you talk because it's all very well thought out and you really know your stuff. With any project, I'm always trying to figure out if the juice is worth the squeeze on it and really why we're doing this one. And if what we're going to do is then going to create more issues down the line. So if we're doing this for safety, one question is, have we analyzed what this hurt on De La Vina?
Yeah, this particular section of De La Vina Street from Mission down to Arriaga Street, there's an average of about 2 to 2.5 injury collisions per year.
Okay, and are those collisions vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to bicyclist, vehicle to pedestrian?
All the above.
All the above,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I've been driving on De La Vina for 25 years, and yeah, it's sketchy. If you're driving on anything bigger than a Fiat 500, like it feels really, really tight, especially with two cars there. Have we, when you narrow this down to one lane though, now it's going to feel a lot more open. Me personally, that'd make me want to go faster. So have we accounted for that?
It hasn't worked out that way on the section they've already done.
Okay.
Yeah,
Asking him.
great question as far as the speed. So I'll just share the speeds in the upper De La Vina, the part that was restriped in 2021. So before, the average speed was 30 miles an hour, and the 85th percentile speed was 34, and that went down to 28 and 31. So on one hand, yes, a little bit more wide open feeling, possibly a little bit more comfortable, but you can only go as fast as the person in front of you.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
overall, we did see a slight reduction, and a reduction in those higher end speeds was a little bit more pronounced.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's my feeling as a frequent cyclist on that. It's just, yeah, it's just like that. I thought people were gonna go faster there.
The other comment that you made, which I thought was really, really bright, that all of us on this community need to keep in our mind is who shows up to these meetings and who we hear from. There is no Santa Barbara Association of 9 to 5 sedan commuters that show up. That's not a thing. Does every single person in the world hate sitting in traffic? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Does anybody here like sitting in traffic? Okay, no. I want to be real careful about engineering for 1%, less than 1% of our users. Nobody builds a system that engineers for
Remember,
1% users.
we're on questions at this time.
Okay.
Let's get public comment happen.
I have a couple questions. Also, apologies for having to join a little late today. Can you repeat the numbers for kind of the cost difference in doing this as part of associated with the repaving versus if it were to be done another time, and kind of some of those costs again?
So there's, at the end of the repaving project, there's a cost of putting the pavement markings back in. That cost is there no matter the configuration. After 1 year, if we want to make the pilot project permanent, it's about $15,000 plus an additional 45 if we want to make the project permanent with green markings. So 15 without green markings, about 60 with.
To clarify again on the green markings, that's the conflict striping that you would see. It's the, that are at the intersection approaches.
Thank you. After a year, if the pilot project is not successful and the desire is to revert back to existing, it would be about 25,000.
Sorry, I'm confused. I thought you were doing the pilot project because you were going to be repaving it at the end.
Repaving first.
Oh. Yeah, I'm so sorry. The paving project is happening at the end of the crosswalk project that's in construction right now. So there's been recently the water line project, the gas project, meant the pilot project, do the pilot project, or if no pilot project, we'll do a, yeah, I got it.
All right, thank you. And my next question, I think I'm just trying to figure out, it was interesting to me that there was more traffic at Arriaga than at Mission. And I was trying to figure, like, where are those people coming from? Like, where's the accumulation between Mission and?
Can I have two slides? There we go. Okay. Mission Street intersection on the left. So the 391 to 537, depending on the day you're out there, they're going straight. What's not shown on here is coming from the freeway, there's a really heavy right turn movement. And so that's the accumulation. So there's not a whole lot of traffic entering and exiting between Arriaga and Mission. It's really that through movement plus that heavy right movement eastbound to southbound.
Okay, so those are probably, if it's at the 5 o'clock hour, then those are probably people who, say, work somewhere else and are exiting the freeway and getting onto De La Vina there, probably because they're getting close to home and living in the neighborhood. They've come up the freeway. So those probably actually are some of these local residents that we're talking about who would be in that congestion, is there maybe a few blocks from home. So I think that's interesting. Do you have a model, and I know models are limited and everything is unpredictable, but since we have seen a lot of bikes increasing, both as biking is becoming more common and as, we've added the bike paths in that area, do you have a model for like how much additional increase in biking you might see? Is that?
We don't know how many more cyclists this could be attracted to this facility if it went through further.
And then, so if it seems like there's a lot of people and a lot of congestion at Arriaga, and, you're afraid you're kind of hitting the point even for just a short time of day. With that limitation, is there ever a way where it would meet the standard driver experience to ever extend it? Or under your requirements, would we just never fully connect this De La Vina pathway?
It's an interesting question. If the pilot project moves forward as recommended, and after a year, it's evaluated, and the community is supportive of keeping it and making it permanent, it's really hard to say. The community may request at that time that it go further and be tolerant of additional congestion. I'm a little skeptical that the community would be tolerant of it. It's hard to say. If State Street were to reopen downtown and it becomes a through route, perhaps a little bit more traffic moves back over to State Street. There's things that could happen in the future that we can't predict, but if the demand on De La Vina Street stays the same, I think we can quantify what that congestion will be. Just what's unknown is just how tolerant the community would be to additional congestion, and I'm skeptical.
Okay. And my final question, and I don't know if I'm opening up something that I don't want to ask, but I actually don't know the answer here. Seems like you're very, very hesitant to get kind of a public outcry. What are past times where, you've done a project? Have there been times where we have taken out bike infrastructure because of traffic demands and public upset?
Not take it out, but going back 20 years or so, at the same time, they weren't very well received. So that kind of thing's in the back of our mind, because after that happened, there was a pause on safety projects. And there was kind of a time where, as a city, we had to rebuild the trust of the community. And so it just makes us pause, and we don't want to make a decision now that affects other safety projects and just how well those other safety projects will be accepted. Even though those other safety projects might make all the sense in the world, If the community doesn't trust what we're doing, it invites scrutiny. So that's always in the back of our minds.
Okay, so we might have to decide whether this is the place where we want to make our risky stand. And is this was it tier 1 or tier 2 corridor on the Vision Zero? Okay, so this is a tier 1.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you all. First, just curious, what year did that take place, the Upper East backlash and subsequent policy changes?
About 2008,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Just one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, didn't one of you tell me you got quite a bit of backlash from the Gillespie project?
Yes. I think we're aware of the backlash of that project and its status, right?
I think anything related to changing a traffic or travel pattern, any change anywhere is a
Yes.
change, and some people handle that change better than others, but naturally it's 6 to 12 months. We usually say like 6 months before traffic patterns settles. So with anything, there's always the very first week, or when certain things go into operation, we know that things will settle down. But there still continues to be feedback on the various infrastructure. But that's not just specific to that. It's always for all the work that we do. There's not a project that's without any opinion.
Yeah, and actually, that follow-up question is, is it accurate to say that more of that critical response is concentrated on projects that cause traffic to divert their path as opposed to lane reduction? I think of Las Positas as an example, seeing a lot of complaining on Nextdoor about the lane reductions on Las Positas. I have yet to meet anyone recently who thinks it's anything other than an amazing improvement. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that an accurate synopsis?
Locally, I would say yes, but I think the reason for that is our approach to date with lane reduction projects has been very conservative. And the projects that we've put forward for consideration have always been kind of do no harm, really minimizing the impacts. And so, as I said, this one is different, and this is why. If you can hear the discomfort in my voice.
I appreciate it. There are real
yeah.
questions, yeah.
That's why. Everything we've done to date, we've been very confident that it would work, and no congestion, minimal impact to travel delay. So that's why the diversion has been more noticeable than the lane reductions, just because of the choice of the lane reductions.
Right. Okay, interesting.
And it's not necessarily, again, diversion, like anytime we're installing roundabouts, for example, it's just a different, or going from stop control to traffic signals, or stop control to roundabouts, all of that, there's always feedback.
Got it. So I'm curious about, the city you're saying it's been your approach to be particularly conservative on safety projects in terms of potential impacts to queuing and congestion or perceived congestion. Is that approach codified as city policy in any, our circulation element or similar? Is there a directive?
It's not an apples to apples, but where you'll see the discussion and where it was retained as policy, if you recall, when we're looking at growth management, and one of the tools what is it, July 1st, 2020 was level of service, but it was more in the context for land development, and there's specific rubrics and regulations that you're not having one particular project have an increase of more than 1% to an impacted intersection. Level of service changed in the CEQA guidelines from that to vehicle miles traveled. And, but the
terms of
congestion
reducing, right.
part still was retained as policy. But you see more of that language in our, just that, and if you were to read the 2011 general plan, and if you go back into the public comments at that time, is generally, Santa Barbara does not like to have congestion. There's just
Well, no one
other,
does.
yeah, there's we still measure congestion. It's just a as Derek explained in the modeling, that's how we're looking at it, in terms of like circulation on our network from that perspective.
Gotcha, that's helpful. And just to clarify, the CEQA changes that were state mandated, right, was to go from, instead of prioritizing a project or development's impact on level of service, it's now to say reducing vehicles mile travel as much as possible, right? Is that that's kind of the policy change?
It moved from congestion to more of like vehicle miles traveled and more towards the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions.
By driving less, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Does any of the traffic modeling for this account for any potential mode shift? So for example, if people were proactively driving on De La Vina where they otherwise would have cycled, say if they were a local neighbor or going cross town, is there any mode shift impact?
Not that was considered in the calculations and the traffic modeling. Again, it's really hard to predict. So again, that's where a pilot project would come in, that we could measure that and quantify it a year from
Yeah.
the year after implementation.
And what we struggle with on mode shift, it's always hard, and we covered that kind of in the past and present approach to traffic safety and the Safe Streets for All action plan is, it's not one project that's going to cause the mode shift. It's going to be lots of projects collectively along the corridor that would eventually change mode shift. So it's beyond. So like when we think of, again, for why you choose different from walking, it's usually like somebody making the decision if they're going out their front door. Typically, people will walk a half a mile to a mile before they change, again, assuming able body to change to a different mode. With cycling, it's usually about 4 miles, but with e-bikes, it's a little bit more. So when we think of mode shifts, that you think of going out the front door, where is their 4 mile connection?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the short answer being, we don't assume any of that in this model.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so this is kind of a random question, but is this project area currently compliant with like state daylighting laws in terms of the red curb? I can't recall if we have, I don't know if our city has a proactive enforcement program on that, but would this, if there is any part that isn't currently compliant, would this project include restriping to make it compliant?
And Mr. Bailey, when you're answering the question, just for those that are in the audience or watching from
yeah.
home, can you explain the daylighting and the distance?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, the daylighting law that was passed at the state level says that on approaches to intersections, there has to be at least 20 feet of a no parking zone from the corner, or it's 15 feet if there's a curb extension. There will be curb extensions soon with the crosswalk project. Santa Barbara long ago painted red curbs at corners So this area hasn't been specifically measured. I would suspect that everything is compliant. And the reason, a long time ago, that the red curbs were painted at corners was for maneuverability. It wasn't so much for sightlines. Added benefit, added safety benefit for sightlines, but just with our narrow streets and larger vehicles turning at corners, just keeping vehicles a little bit further away. So it's not something we've focused on specifically just because before this law was passed at the state, it basically existed all over town.
Right, got it. Okay, and then, so said this committee felt like recommending something different. I assume it's fair to say you would still have your staff recommendation when you go to council. You would just present kind of option A, option B, more or less with the same information, and then just refer our comments.
That is correct, but if there was a different motion that the Transportation Circulation Committee had, we'd reflect that in the staff report and then request representation at the council hearing.
Okay. And that's in October, assumed, okay.
Yes, and then that's an ideal date, but if, again, if there was a different motion than the staff recommendation, then we would make sure that the dates worked for everybody.
Okay. And, okay, last question is, so the street paving project goes to Micheltorena, so it's one block further than that. If, obviously this is a council level thing, but if they felt so compelled as to say, we really want that one more block, like let's say you're already going to Micheltorena because that's where the paving project ends, is it a significant cost increase or feasibility difficulty to add that one extra block in that hypothetical? Sorry, it's kind of hypothetical, but yeah, I think you understand the question.
So your hypothetical would be extending it to Micheltorena?
It would be extending it to Sola, but
Sola.
I'm concerned that because this is, the whole point of this is that we're doing it in conjunction with a repaving, restriping. We're not repaving that last block if we were going to Sola. So does it significantly change the feasibility of that?
The trade-off with, so that block south of Micheltorena Street, all the way to Creo was repaved 4 or 5 years ago or so. And there were very durable pavement markings put in. So to remove those, it leaves scarring on the pavement. So it's not just a cost, it's also damaging the pavement. That's why with the pilot project, we're recommending a really thin traffic paint. Goleta's doing something similar to that in Old Town Hollister. You can see how the paint is really wearing off. So the level of effort to remove it's pretty minimal. So it's not only a cost. For one block, I wouldn't say the cost is significant, but there's also the pavement damage that would happen.
Gotcha. All right, and my last question is, since it's a pilot project and the whole point is essentially to assess how it goes, what metrics are you thinking would be incorporated as part of that analysis? Would bicycle volumes specifically, and also traffic incidents by different mode, including pedestrian, would that be part of that analysis?
Yes, there'd be full data collection of all modes, collected travel times, use by mode, delays. As I mentioned, the collision data, it's not a long enough duration to establish long-term trends,
Sure, yeah.
but it can be very informative.
Yeah, and
And can I actually add on to that question of metrics?
Yeah, go for it.
Would you be looking at some of the downstream effects on further down on De La Vina, or like kind of spillover maybe on Castillo, or could you measure those as well?
Yes, definitely.
all right, well, if there are no more questions, I think, thank you to staff for the presentation and answering our questions. We'll move on to public comment. Thank you to everybody for your patience. This is almost record attendance here. So, do we do 2 or 3 minutes usually? I can't recall. 3?
I recommend 2 minutes since we have 2 other items
that's
on the agenda
Very,
tonight.
very fair. Yeah, so we'll do public comment, 2 minutes each. Please state your name for the record in the microphone.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Candace Gregory, and thank you, Mr. Bailey, for your presentation. It was very clear for us that don't know your biz very well, but I'm a resident on De La Vina. I live between Arriaga and Mitchell Terena, and I'm here for a lot of my neighbors.
If we could speak in the microphone,
Oh,
it's just
sorry.
because this is televised, so
Oh,
that
sorry.
everybody could hear you. Thank you.
Should I start over?
I think, just state your name one more time for the record.
I'm
and then-
Candace
yes.
Gregory, and I live on De La Vina Street between Arriaga and Mitchell Terena. And I'm here for a lot of my neighbors. I really appreciate your concern about safety for automobiles. We're asking for concern about safety for residents. My block is completely residential. There's 6 families with children. We see a lot of cars driving like they're on the highway on De La Vina. It's very frightening. It's very dangerous. We're afraid somebody's going to get killed. And I'm not exaggerating. It's dangerous to get in and out of our cars. It's so narrow. It's so many cars. You put up a beautiful sign saying the street light was calibrated. Nobody pays attention to it. Beautiful green and white. A lot of cars, when they see that when their light goes green at Arriaga, they floor it, even though they see the light is red at Mitchell Terena. Maybe assuming by the time they get there it'll be green. But they're going way over 25 miles an hour, which makes it especially dangerous when you're trying to calibrate whether to get in and out of your car. A lot of us have to park on the street, and there's no spaces to pull over if an emergency vehicle comes down. I believe that, like I do, I believe other streets should share the load. We're all residential up and down, pretty much from Mission to at least Sola. We've had, I don't know if the collision data includes cars being hit that are parked. My car was totaled in the middle of the day, and I was the 4th car in 2 years on our block that got totaled, parked on our street. I don't know if that collision data includes those numbers.
If we could wrap up the comment
Okay.
for the 2 minutes.
Let me just see if I forgot anything important. What we're asking is, could you please make the pilot project include through to Mitchell Terena and test it out and see what kind of problems it causes? I'm sorry, but damn it, drivers, so what if you have to wait a little longer if it keeps our children safe?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry for this swearing.
No, we've heard worse. All right.
Are there any other in-person speakers? Okay, so
We're all
we'll
just
switch.
watching. Okay.
We'll switch to online. First will be Guthrie Leonard, and then next up will be Hannah Cohen. Miss Guthrie Leonard, you have permission to speak. Please unmute, and then you may begin. We don't hear you yet. If you're
Maybe we could do the others and then go
Yeah.
back to him.
okay, well, I'm gonna move forward with Hannah Cohen, and then we'll try again for you at the end. Okay, I'll allow Hannah Cohen to speak, and then next up will be Lily Hydrer.
Hello. Hello. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. And I would like to say that I support this project, but I do have one but for it. I understand the concern about congestion. And I want to say that congestion is absolutely a trade-off that the public should be able to take in order to save lives. I used to live right where this pilot project is happening, and just as the last public commenter stated, people drive like it's a highway. It is terrifying, whether you're a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or even a driver. And I also want to point out that when bicycle infrastructure is truly safe, it will reduce congestion due to people willing to shift their mode to riding a bicycle. But this can only be done with a bike network that is safe and connected. Unless this is extended to SOLA, it will not do the same motivation for a mode shift that this would. By only having this go part of the way to SOLA and having a disconnected bike network, you have the worst of both worlds. You have the same number of cars, but fewer lanes. And you are not going to receive a positive feedback from the public to go even further. And you know, you really need to have a truly connected and safe bike network. And to make this completely much safer, physical protection for the bike lane would be necessary. But at the very least, we need to connect what is currently planned to what we already have put so much money and effort into. So I just want to say that saving lives is a trade-off that we have to be willing to make. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go move.
Months or so. But even before living here, I really avoided De La Vina at all costs, whether I was walking, biking, or driving. And it's a pretty common experience, even just chatting with friends and other folks in the community about De La Vina, that it's just a stressful street to exist on in any form of mobility. Driving on it, it feels very narrow. I'm really scared of folks getting out of their cars and me hitting them. Seeing any pedestrians crossing is really difficult. And I feel like I constantly have people that are going too fast trying to get around me to get down the street at a speed that is much too high for the area. And then as a pedestrian, I walk my dog on the street every day. Crossing De La Vina is usually just not an option in my mind unless I have to, unless I go down several blocks to cross at a light. And biking on it, it's the fastest way for me to typically get most places downtown. But it comes at a cost, right? Sometimes I'll do it on my e-bike because I am confident and I can go faster with the speed of traffic. But it's extremely sketchy either way. So I want to speak in favor of extending it all the way to SOLA. I think that would connect a really vital part of the bike infrastructure in this area. Chapala is such a nice connection from my area to Upper State, and connecting that bike lane on De La Vina down to SOLA to allow me to get over to State Street into the east side would just make a world of difference in safety for both bicyclists, but for drivers as well, whether they realize it or not. So thank you all for this project, and we'd really like to see it go all the way to SOLA.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Megan Mosoff and then Guthrie Leonard one more time. Okay, Megan, you have permission to speak. Please unmute and you may begin.
Thank you. Hello, it felt to navigate nearby Bath and Castillo streets that only have one lane. The dedicated bike lane does so much. It gives bicyclists a designated space and prevents drivers from swerving around them. It creates much better visibility at intersections, and it buffers parked cars. My partner's side view mirror was literally just taken out this week while his car was parked on the 2-lane portion of De La Vina. I think this project would move us toward a community that truly prioritizes pedestrian and cyclist safety at the same level of driver convenience. So thank you for considering this project, and I'm sure that you'll find it a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Guthrie Leonard.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me this time?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies for earlier. I'm gonna be honest, most everyone said the things I was already going to say, so I'll just touch on a couple things. As far as the driver experience goes, I would mention that like part of this project is the repaving of the road, which, you know, admittedly is congestion can be more frustrating than an unpaved road, but an unpaved road is frustrating. So like this is improving the driver experience still. And I also want to say that Board Member Smith is right. Like, if the road gets congested, people can choose other roads, and you know that might include the freeway, which is designed for free-flowing traffic. And so ultimately, yeah, you know, I hope that I think if it's just going to be a year, there's no reason we can't try more, right? And I think we saw that over on Alisos, right? We put in all the modal filters, which are great, and it was a problem. There, you know, people said there were too many, and they took out one of them. But, you know, we tried something, and I think we can still do that here. So I hope you guys choose to ultimately, or at least council chooses to ultimately take this all the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all of our speakers.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our members of the public who took the time to share their thoughts with us today. It's certainly appreciated. We'll move it back to the committee for our comments, and then once we're all done making comments, we will entertain a motion for a recommendation.
Actually, can I quickly add for public comment? I just received 2 emails for public comment regarding this topic. They will be submitted to the committee after the meeting, and let me read their name for the record. So the ones that will be distributed to you all after the meeting is one from Kevin Heim and Mark Sapp. Thank you.
Great. All right. Who would like to start? Committee Member Smith.
Yeah, I feel like this is all about me just because that's my route downtown. And I do bike a lot. So one thing I want to say is, like, I was really going to beat up on you for not just doing it through the SOLA. And in the course of hearing you and thinking about it more, I'm much less adamant about that. And part of the reason is not just your turn left on Arriaga, because that's a relatively high traffic street as a cyclist. I'm going to turn left before I get there. It would be nice to be able to get to Sola and take the thing that's set aside for bikes. But those other streets are okay. They're not steep. They're not heavily trafficked. Not a big deal. I do hear what the citizens, you know, what the residents said, so yeah, the 2-lane version of De La Vina through my neighborhood was everything they were saying. It's like for some reason cars went faster even though it's tight. Which it's to get over to the left and you can't, you know, it's so that's a whole bunch of stuff. The other thing is, from my perspective, and I understand where you're coming from, but Vision Zero, in my mind, was supposed to represent a changed attitude. Worrying about whether somebody might have to stop through 2 changes of the light, you know, that might happen a few times a day, just seems like that sounds pre-Vision Zero to me. So it's, you know, I think your analysis was all great, but I think the goalposts are supposed to be getting moved a bit. And I understand what you're getting at, but it's like, it's my opinion. I think that's it. Thanks.
Yeah,
So I actually think joined the TCC right after or kind of during the wave of like people being mad about the Upper East project. And when you started here, it's been 14 years or something I've been on this committee, which is outrageous. But the thing that I know that Public Works learned from that is how to build that trust and how to do the outreach, right? Because part of the problem with the Upper East was they had done the outreach and then crickets, and then years later they go, surprise, here's the project, if I recall correctly, and then people flipped out, right? You guys have so many touch points with the public on every single thing you do. I see the A-frames up, I see the meetings, you have it online, you have it down to a science. It's beautiful, and it really works. And I think when you look, I mean, if you think about these streets, these one-way streets downtown, the character of those have changed so much. And so I want more people to have that in their neighborhoods. And I appreciate that, the recommendation is to give more people that in their neighborhood. But I also realize because of the good work this department has done over the last 15 years, the low-hanging fruit, it's like kind of picked. Really. Which is why, when we look at the last bike master plan, like, we've done a lot of it, right? It's so impressive, all the ATP success you've had. And so we're going to start getting to projects that are safety projects that are going to improve things for vulnerable road users that might rub up against, I don't think a lot. This is pretty, it doesn't seem that gnarly. And I drive on De La Vina. I feel like I am the one who does get caught in the back of the queue already, so it doesn't sound like that big of a change to me. But it's gonna start getting harder. There's gonna have to be trade-offs as we move through the rest of the city and dealing with these different corridors. So I guess I understand why you've had such a successful run and you don't want to blow it on something like this. I don't think you will. But also, when it comes to motorist comfort, I appreciated the neighbor who said, we can like barely get in our car, right? And so that's another thing. Like the people who obviously drive in the neighborhood because they live there, they're having a heck of a time right now, getting into their vehicles. And so, that is certainly the case down to Arriaga. So I tend to, and I understand the incrementalism. We're chewing nibbling the ends of De La Vina. And as you mentioned, like before you said, before Mission, right? When we talked about it a few years ago, it was like, we don't think it's possible, right? Conditions have shifted, and now it looks possible. So I understand the incrementalism. I just also know they're going to make a decision, and I think you're like maybe the most trusted person who works for the city of Santa Barbara. So they're probably going to go with whatever you suggest. But I think that it's going to get harder to make recommendations that might make some people a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that that's what we're facing moving forward. But the Vision Zero, sort of mandate and policy to me supersedes that. So I appreciate the nervousness, the concern, but I think the risk you stated of that possible congestion for part of that peak hour, I think is probably worth it to take it to Arriaga. I also understand piecemealing it beyond that possibly, and waiting a year to go further than that also, I understand, but I think a tiny amount further is worth trying.
Committee Member Rodriguez, you ready? Yep.
When you first started, the first thing I thought was, why aren't you taking this all the way down? That was so I know you've explained why you're not going to, but I just can't support that. I think that De La Vina is extremely dangerous. And I think the Anacapa has been modified, Chapala has been modified, and Upper De La Vina has been done. And maybe they aren't as highly utilized, and that's why you haven't had a lot of pushback. But when you hear things that people are getting their mirrors broken off, that their cars are getting smashed, too much to go all the way through it as a pilot, and at this point, it doesn't feel like, I just don't feel like, I don't get the sense you're going to get the community pushback when you have residents that are so unhappy. I think those are the folks that need to be listened to, and people can drive 5 miles an hour less. I mean, they aren't going 25, and maybe there needs to be more posted that it's at 25. And Vision Zero is more important. The city has changed its focus. I mean, I've been on this committee not as long as Hillary, but almost, and we had a meeting here where we had dozens of people when the bike path was going to go on Mission Street. You'd think we were tearing down the city. I mean, it was really crazy meeting. Derek was there. I think you were there. And the change to SOLA to save all the parking and everything on Mission. Mitchell Traina. I mean, the residents of Mitchell Traina came out hysterical. They were going to lose all their parking spaces. Well, we ended up modifying and not doing that, and going to SOLA, but I don't think this is anywhere close to the requirement that was made in that situation. We were asking a lot more of the citizens, and we got a real bad feedback. I don't think you're going to get terrible feedback from people having to drive slower on De La Vina, all the way down to where the whole project would go. That's my feeling. And I respect that you think it needs to be done over a 2-year period, but I don't think anything except positive is going to come out of it. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Committee Member Metzenberg.
I want to thank the public for showing up, especially the residents, and bringing up those points. A lot of this, I don't view this one as that simple. I think this is kind of a complicated one here. I'm a fan of your phased approach of incrementalism with this one. I have a lot of respect for your opinions, and you seem to have a gut feeling that this shouldn't be taken on super fast. And you're a bit uneasy about that. I don't know if you're... I think that's really wise, and I wouldn't discount that any more than I would discount these folks' lived experience, living in that area. One thing that scares me about taking on a big restriping project and going, kind of like big bang implementation is we can look what just happened in downtown Goleta, which did a really big restriping project. And, the risk of congestion, they got a lot of congestion. Okay, if they want to pay money and paint it back, you could turn it all back to what it was, and you could do the same thing here. That's not the risk. There's a risk behind that risk. And you touched on that when you talked about loss of public trust in what we're doing here. Goleta really damaged their public trust with how they managed that program, and they have not recovered from it. Maybe they will one day. I don't know. But hence why I'm a fan of a more incremental approach that you seem to have right here. So I like it. Thanks.
That exist now. And so we are making progress in increasing other modes through that area. And so I don't think we need to assume from the beginning that we just need to focus on the same congestion patterns that have existed before, or that we will, of course, cars are down now, but, maybe they will increase. And they probably will to some degree. But, yeah, I think bikes being up really show, well, I'll get back to that. But the other thing I noticed is that if the accumulation is coming from people getting off the freeway at Mission at 5 p.m., this is local. And so these are our residents who are commenting and who probably park in these neighborhoods, who get their cars swiped. I don't live on De La Vina, but I have at other points. And I remember just lying in bed at night and you'd hear something gets smashed and you'd be like, oh, yep, there's another one. And those very narrow lanes that are designed to avoid congestion for that one narrow, like, hour period are creating all kinds of other issues. I do think, so it seems like if the repaving goes to Micheltorena, I think it's an absolute waste to not take this, at least to Micheltorena, to get to the bridge for the pilot. I think it needs to go, but I think in the longer term, this needs to be extended through Sola, gives the bikes a great place to go. Because I think if we don't give the bikes an outlet or a like proper pathway, and then we just open it back to 2 lanes for cars, what we're gonna have is we have this long, wonderful section of bike lanes that we're seeing the numbers of bikes increasing. And so, for the most part, those bikes are going to then, all those increased bikes now stay on De La Vina, and they're going slower than 25 miles an hour. And so those cars are going to get stuck behind bikes or veer around them, and that's going to be unsafe. And so I think having just the separate modes is what we need to be able to accommodate. And it's easier to clear a bike lane and pull over into that area than it is to clear 2 lanes of congested traffic with cars parked. Bikes can fit in small spaces and wiggle around to get out of the way. Yeah, I know it sounds like there have been some past concerns, but I think Committee Member Rodriguez said, and Committee Member Blackerby, I don't think we're going to see that here. And I think I just come back to the TCC mission says that safety and Vision Zero is a priority, and so I think we have to prioritize this and we have to keep going further. We've talked about should we take an incrementalist approach and do this in parts. But I also think that another kind of incrementalism is about getting, our city and public works and city council comfort with the discomfort of doing hard things that aren't low-hanging fruit. And so we have to kind of be willing to push into these harder projects. And I think this is one that's not that bad. And so I think this is a good place to go further. And so we'll see where we settle out with a motion, but I would definitely like to see it go past Arriaga.
An immaterial, inconsequential thing to put people in that queue. I used to live for a year on De La Vina and Valerio, and I did not bike pretty much at all on De La Vina whatsoever, precisely because of the condition. And I had quite a not such a fun time crossing De La Vina because of that double jeopardy situation you mentioned that is created by 2 lanes. And as a very frequent driver, I was half of those probably right turns from Mission coming back from Hidden Valley going down De La Vina. Once you make that turn, there's a very noticeable deterioration in people's driving abilities. And I think the second lane, especially on one-way streets, gives people a very subtle permission structure, because it looks more like a freeway, that they're like, oh, well, I can do some nonsense and, block one of these lanes in full or in part. They'll just go around. But that's how you cause accidents, because you're not considering the other people, what they can see, if it's a bike or pedestrian. And you have a lot of folks who are braver than I am who would still bike down that right lane. And that causes congestion, in my view, because the cars get stuck behind it and they have to then make a merge left into the left lane. And that's an unnecessary turning movement, I think, that we don't necessarily need to be, and causes risk, right? We don't need to be doing that, I think, unless it's absolutely necessary for traffic flow purpose. That part of De La Vina looked like De La Vina further up or Chapala just over. I would have happily taken that deal. And maybe that's just me. I'm much more of a driver than I am a cyclist, but I do think, we have Vision Zero, the Safe Streets for All plan. This was included as one of the streets. this exact segment, the city's circulation element, the vision statement on top of the 2011 general plan circulation element is that we should, as a city, strive to make it so attractive to take other means of transportation besides the automobile that it's a genuine choice and it's not a necessity to drive. And I don't think it is possible for us to truly live up to that adopted city policy if our approach is that if a driver might get grumpy, we can't do it. I think safety is the number one priority, and there are other priorities, but they are lesser priorities, in my view. So, that's just to kind of table set where I'm at in terms of thinking about this. We went through a lot of, I wasn't involved directly at the time on the committee, but there was a lot of push and pull and effort expended on getting SOLA put in. And to me, it's not worth it as much if every bike lane stops just short of connecting to SOLA. The value of SOLA would be as kind of the cross this way town route that a lot of the other bike lanes the other way could connect into and feed into, and it's very natural because then you can go down State Street and the bike experience gets better coming down SOLA to State Street. So I think it makes a lot of sense to push this and been able to chime in. But I've seen they went through to their council and presented their data, and it is materially a lot safer. And there's still some people who are upset about it, and you had this Caltrans projects next door that caught it. The timing wasn't great. But it's already a safer street. It's just a fact. And so if we can do this, try it for a year in the ideal form, and then say, okay, the queuing is getting crazy at Arriaga or the next street. Let's scale it back if that's what the council decides. I mean, nobody is going to be more sensitive to public pushback than the politicians who are making this decision at the end of the day. So I think as our committee, we should make our recommendation what we think is the idealized version of this project. And I do agree with the incrementalist thought process, which is why it's a pilot project, right? And it's why you're not going all the way down to Creo. I hear you there. I just think SOLA is more of an appropriate endpoint if we're not going all the way. And I think that's pretty much it, other than just to thank the public for speaking up on their views. And, as a former resident of De La Vina, I concur about the experience. And I think, I like the adage of, the community's trust and high regard as your guiding principles, but I do think it's worth naming that there is a perception amongst many in the community that that trust is eroded when they feel like they're asking for safety improvements on their neighborhood and being told no over and over and again for years. And they have to wait for the next grant from some other body to pay for a major change, or maybe they get something. But yeah, I just think a lot of people have been asking this for a long time for good reason, and I think this is a great opportunity to do quite an improvement to the area. So I would definitely support a motion for the staff recommendation with the one change of ending it at SOLA instead. But that's where I'm at. And if anybody would like to take a hand at making a motion, Vice Chair.
I did sketch out a paragraph. I don't understand exactly process. I want to do it right. I think the recommendation as it stands, we could support, but I would add, although the recommended plan is excellent, the Transportation and Circulation Committee strongly recommends extending the pilot area to SOLA if possible to ensure Vision Zero and safety are highest priority.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
I
I
think-
was, I was going to ask for Vision Zero to be incorporated, so.
I said Vision
Yep,
Zero. yeah.
I think you
Well,
got to what I was looking for. So.
I don't know what we're allowed to do. I just wrote that because I think.
We can
need
recommend
to
whatever
say
we
that.
want, and then they can
She's
take
got
it
it
or
right.
leave it.
We support the
The recommended
the
pilot
recommended
project,
pilot project, and in addition,
and would like it to.
we'd like to recommend blah, 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 blah.
Can we maybe add in just a clause about why we recommend SOLA, since we are going against the recommended recommendation?
I said to ensure Vision Zero and safety are highest priority.
I think maybe, and like to connect with the SOLA bike, yeah.
Okay, connect.
All right, I'm We'll have you repeat it one more time and then go through the
Sola
process.
bike, this isn't too bad.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Path. Okay, we support the De La Vina State Street pilot restriping, and you'll get all that long title, NAMI, project. And we recommend, and, I don't have to say we think it's excellent, we do. And our committee strongly recommends extending the pilot area to Sola Street if possible to connect with the Sola bike path to ensure Vision Zero and safety are highest priorities for this project. Because I don't think we're concerned about somebody going 5 miles slower, 5 miles an hour slower at the signal lights.
So is that a motion?
Yes, is that, may I make a motion?
You may.
Oh,
Is that
okay,
your motion?
I'm making a motion.
All right, I second that motion. Okay. I think if there's any discussion to the motion. Yes.
If this motion passes, does that not require this be redone to include the section that's not currently included?
Committee Member Bickford, through the chair, we'd just be presenting what was presented at the TCC, what the staff recommendation was at the TCC hearing, and what the additional recommendation from the TCC was. So that becomes the city council staff report. And we would also reflect what we've heard from the community during the webinar, in-person meeting, and what we heard tonight from those that spoke.
Would it not require additional public hearings to deal with the additional?
Mention when we extend it, then we would need to put in right turn pockets, which approximately translates to 8 parking spaces removal per block. And so that just would need to be reflected into the either council agenda report or with a subsequent public meeting.
If I could add to that, when we did our analysis, the traffic analysis, we did look at the Arriaga intersection, and we know that to optimize that intersection, that's removal of 8 parking spaces. We did not look closely at the Mitchell-Trina intersection, so that work would need to be done, and
So would that not delay the implementation of this past
possibly.
early
So
2027?
I made the motion. Let me add something, please. I said if possible. I didn't say it was we're encouraging. We're not requiring them to go back and do more extra research. We're just encouraging that Vision Zero should be the highest priority. And if the city council decides,
Right, but I think you're tying their hands by making the motion like that, and instead,
no,
it should be
I don't think
phrased
so.
as a recommendation for future consideration.
That is essentially what it is.
That is what I'm doing, yeah.
So, just for further clarification, we obviously cannot direct staff to do. Ultimately, staff is going to present their current recommendation, all of this information to the city council, and also let them know what we said, and then the city council can direct. I mean, they can direct whatever they want. They can tell you to go to Korea if they want to, right? If they're even bolder than we are. So, you'll have to iterate off that regardless, right? Before the project is done.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, let's take a vote.
Want me to read back the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what I have. Committee Member Rodriguez motioned to recommend City Council approve staff's recommendation of the De La Vina Street pilot restriping project between Padre and Valerio Streets project as presented, and also recommend extending the pilot area to Sola Street if possible to connect the pilot bike lane to the Sola Street bike path to incorporate the principles of Vision Zero.
All right, can we do roll call vote?
Okay, roll
let's
call
go.
vote. Okay, Committee Member Rodriguez.
Well, yes.
Committee Member Blackerby.
Aye.
Chair Baki.
Yes.
Vice Chair Siegslag.
Aye.
Committee Member Smith.
Yes.
Committee Member Metzenberg.
On the staff recommendation.
I'm in favor of getting the restriping project as far down as you want to go, but do it incrementally, slowly. Observe the changes, be Bayesian about it, go back, change, don't do it all at once. That's why I was a no.
Thank you.
And my concern is, again, I would like to see it implemented as soon as possible and can conceive that council would then choose to, yes, go to Sola Street, which would delay the implementation further. So it's a good idea to go to Sola Street. I'm not opposed to that. Absolutely fine. But I am opposed to anything that would delay the beginning of the process.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think we're done with this item. So yeah, once again, thank you to everybody for their participation. This was a very interesting discussion.
Thank you, Derek.
And I apologize. I was not, I don't know why. I thought this would be done sooner, but my childcare clock is running down. So I hate to miss these. Love Safe Routes to Schools. Think the bike share should be permanent. So sorry to have to go.
All good. Thank you for attending. All right, and we'll go into our next item, which is the Safe Routes to School program update. And this is just an update. There will be no
Yes.
motions.
So, yes, this is just an update. Again, for the record, Jessica Grant, Supervising Transportation Planner. Joining me with the presentation tonight is Julia Foundation, but these will be shorter presentations, just for context. All right. So with that, Safe Routes to School program update is our recommendation tonight. And the last time we went before this committee for an update was back in 2024. So I just wanted to just provide a little bit of background on, again, what continues to be the services and all of that. For those that may not have been around in 2024, I'll just provide a little bit of context, and then I'll have Julia immediately, Miss Garcia, sorry, to jump right into the presentation. So again, because we are heavy on policy for this board, it's, again, Safe Routes to School is really rooted in all of our governing documents from our circulation element, which is part of the backbone of the city's general plan, and to, again, have safe routes to school. And also through the lens, not from an infrastructure, not only an infrastructure standpoint, but for education, encouragement, and those types of things. So, and of course, you know, through the Safe Streets for All Action Plan, we updated the pedestrian master plan, Safe Routes to School chapter, updated policies. But we also have reference to, again, Safe Routes to School with our Vision Zero strategy, bike master plan, really with Vision Zero strategy and Safe Streets for All action plan. again, it's through the lens of Vision Zero and the Safe Systems approach. Again, for those that might not be familiar or attended our other hearings during the Safe Streets for All Action Plan, that is just sort of the terminology at the federal level that's been adopted by the state. But again, it's really trying to take a proactive approach. But in the context for safe routes to school is making sure that students and families get to and from not only the destinations from school, but from school to various after-school programming and all of that. For context, again, the MOVE, there's a long history of our programming, but MOVE Santa Barbara County manages the program county-wide. And before MOVE Santa Barbara County, it was the Coalition of Sustainable Transportation, then which is also known as COAST. They merged with the Santa Barbara Bicycle Coalition, and then that was subsequently renamed to MOVE Santa Barbara County, just for context. But a lot of the who's who and players still remain intact. So as far as for funding for countywide safe routes to school education, the main backbone for the funding is through the local Measure A program. The way that the Measure A program was set up is there's North County and South County when it comes to funding. So there's a South County apportionment for safe routes to school. There's a North County, roughly about the same amount of monies. But so there's 39 public schools with just in the South County. Of that 39, there's 17 schools within the city of Santa Barbara. So all our sort of sister cities in the South County, we all have matching funds into the Safe Routes to School program. Ours happens to be $30,000 as the annual contribution. And the way the funding works through Measure A is that funding is in every 3-year cycles. So in addition to those funding sources, there's also OTS. I always forget. I try not to have acronyms, but that's Office of Traffic and Safety. There was an additional grant to focus with the police department and MOVE Santa Barbara County for e-bike safety at the junior high and high school. So that's a sort of a supplement to the regular programming. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Julia, Miss Garcia, sorry, and to tell us a little bit again about the mission and the services that MOVE Santa Barbara County provides. And you will see in the audience that there's representatives from MOVE this evening. So if you have any questions for staff or for MOVE, they are available.
Thank you. I'm here, I wanted to provide a quick reminder about what the program mission for Safe Routes to School is, and that is to help students walk, bike, or roll to and from schools and other destinations safely, confidently, and independently. Safe Routes to School is made up of 4 components: education, engagement, encouragement, safety, and evaluation. Education gives students practical skills they need to walk and bike safely, and that's done through walking and biking safety presentations, bike rodeos, bike neighborhood rides, training PE teachers, and walking school buses or bike train coordination. Encouragement activities such as walk and bike to school days gives students the opportunity to put these skills into practice and help build a culture around active transportation. It also gives a chance for us to participate in events and school meetings and distribute helmets. Safety is highly collaborative. MOVE coordinates traffic safety evaluations with the school representatives, parent representatives, the police department, and transportation. Finally, our annual mobility counts help us to evaluate how students travel and where education, outreach, or infrastructure improvements may be needed. Education is designed to build progressively, and this is a paraphrased version. There is a grade by grade version of this available in the staff report, but roughly K through first, their primary focus is walking safely and recognizing traffic conditions. Second through third, pedestrian practice and introductory bicycle skills. 4 through 6, the focus is bike handling, rules of the road, route planning, and group rides. Junior high, we have street riding, crash prevention, helmets, e-bike safety and maintenance. And high school, similarly, rules of the road, e-bike safety, maintenance, and other student engagement. This is a quick snapshot of some of the activities that have happened over the last school year. That's at the top, starting from the top, we have Roosevelt's Walk and Roll to School Day, Monroe's 6th grade Bike to La Cumbre Junior High with CWA and SBPD support. At the far right, at the top, we have students at Santa Barbara Community Academy learning how to ride in a group safely. Adam's 6th grade bike skills class on the bottom left in PE, navigating intersections. Franklin Elementary School with a pedestrian education course. And Peabody PE teacher on the far right teaching transitional kindergarten and kindergarten balance bike classes. For this upcoming school year, we are still working on the contract with the planned priorities of continued education, engagement, encouragement, safety, and evaluation. And the second focus would be that of the OTS grant for junior high and high school e-bike education. And with that, I will hand it back to Ms. Grant.
Yes, and just in addition to the standard contract, from a city staff perspective, and just as a reminder for the Safe Streets for All action plan, we did have some new updated policies, and I shared during the announcements, but I wanted to share again that we'll be kicking off monthly traffic safety messaging for all users. During the time when we were in the Safe Streets for All and coordinating with the schools, we mentioned that this was coming online and that they were very excited to also forward the same messaging to parents and families on their social media accounts. So we continue to work with them, and really appreciative of the relationship. And then the next one is the school district policies requiring safe routes to school education that did come up during the Safe Streets for All action plan effort. That right now it is not a requirement. It's schools choosing to have the education at their schools. And so for various reasons, it could be a zillion reasons, but maybe that school does not have any safe routes to school education. And so trying to make it equitable cost that every school is having safe routes to school education. So that will be a continued discussion. There is some of us have been, Ms. Garcia and I have been invited to a roundtable that's coming up for the South County related to e-bikes. And it's something that we want to message the importance of having required safe routes to school education in all countywide schools. So just wanted to end with that. And one more thing Move Santa Barbara County put together just an amazing, a couple of brochures. So we saved them as attachments in the staff report. We have one hard copy, but this is just the English version. We also have the Spanish versions as well. And this is continued. It was released at the end of the last school year, but it's not a one and done, and Move Santa Barbara County is actively doing a mix between the hard copies and then also spreading that through social media platforms. And we also have these on our city webpage too for the e-bike safety. So there's, again, the one that I'm holding in my hand is the e-bikes get to where you want to go safely. And then there's another one for an e-bike buyer's guide. And then there's kind of the FAQs as well. There's a link. So we have that all linked on our city website to Move Santa Barbara County. So whether you're at our website or the Move Santa Barbara County, you will find that information. The reason I'm mentioning it is because you are also our ambassadors for the city, and you see all the different rhetoric across different social media platforms, and a lot of times there's just a few pet peeves of that, oh, why isn't anything being written or done? And so to help with just the messaging that things are being done and that we have a Safe Routes to School program, because again, and that's why we bring it before this committee to raise awareness. And again, you're our ambassadors too, when you're in various conversations, to remind others that in fact there is education at the schools. So with that concludes our presentation. Happy to answer any questions. And again, we have staff available or Move Santa Barbara County representatives.
All right, I think for the sake of time, we can do questions and comments together for this item. But go ahead, Committee Member Rodriguez.
I will be brief. I have a child in private school, and I don't know what relationship you have with the private schools, because there's a lot of kids in private schools out on these bikes. That's my first question. My second question is there anything specific in these materials about the problem of young people taking the, whatever you want to call it, taking the restrictions off the speed? You know, although the bike's supposed to have a restricted speed, I don't know if there's any policy about that. But I do want to say this report is really excellent and much appreciated, because I get lots of questions. Is anything happening? And so you're answering it.
So to answer the e-bike question, anytime a e-bike is tampered with, then it no longer fits under whatever the classifications are. So that is made very clear in the California law, and but we also just have that message reiterating the California laws on that. The Measure A monies and our local contribution, but the private schools are not absent of receiving education too, and some schools have some of the private schools have very robust safe routes to school education. So in addition, there are like other nonprofit or charitable contributions that can help fund some of those programs.
This is amazing. Congratulations on getting this done. I also want to report from a subjective standpoint. I live close to Monte Vista School and in between Peabody School. I walk my dog, I bicycle, drive there every single day. And I have noticed, now this is subjective, it's not scientific, a huge difference between this year and last year in bicycle safety, the respectfulness of e-bike riders, almost everyone wearing helmets. It's a definite change in behavior over the last year or so. And I think it's remarkable. So, Safe Routes to School works, and thank you.
It's not, the entire Safe Routes to School programming is not mandatory right now. What has been, and it's not specific, like what we're seeing at some of the junior high levels is with respect to biking, there are some safety contracts sort of in place between the family members and the school that are happening, and And so, and we've started to notice that that is being adopted at some of the other junior high, with respect to, again, that you will wear your helmet and then take some type of training, whether it's through Move Santa Barbara County or listed on our website too is like the CHP has e-bike safety education, and People for Bikes also has links as well. So there's lots of different ways to be educated. What's nice about the Move Santa Barbara County is really the tactile training. There's one thing to look at on a screen. There's another thing of actually doing and writing, and they are the boots on the ground, really showing how kids, whether they're on a regular bike or e-bike, on how to safely maneuver the routes to school.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really great, and hopefully one day we can get to a point where everyone's doing this no matter what, guaranteed. Yeah. Question? Yeah.
Thank you. This is
To parents, when we were also curious when we went before the youth council during the Safe Streets for All action planning effort. Really cool. What gets to you? And so some of the messaging goes again straight to the parents. It's up to the parents, depending upon the content, if they want to share with the child. So the other part is where again, boots on the ground. Move is going out to the schools in person, also making these brochures available directly to the students as well.
thank you.
All right. Well, let's do public comment if there is any on this item. Barry? All right.
There are no speakers for public comment.
All right, great. Well, we'll close out this item with thanks to staff and for your work, and thanks to Move for what you're doing in the community to keep us all safe. And we'll go to the final item, I assume this means to say B-cycle. Oh no, I guess bicycle share pilot program for B-cycle. All right.
Yes, so kicking off this, it will be Ms. Garcia to talk about the bicycle share pilot program update, and then also co-presenting will be the executive director for B-Cycle. So with that, we'll jump right into the presentation.
Just a quick correction, Joanne is the general manager. Joanne, if you wanted to, yes.
Yes, I apologize, Joanne, for the different title change, but general manager, sorry about that.
Thank you for being here and waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll read through the recommendation today. That we receive an update, that the Transportation and Circulation Committee receive an update of the bicycle share pilot program, and recommend City Council approve initiating the transition of the bicycle share pilot program to a permanent program, and authorize staff to begin the permitting and contract negotiations process to have a seamless transition to a permanent program by January of 2028, the end of the pilot program. We did want to go over really quickly what is bike share for those of you who were not on this committee the last time the update was given. Bike share is point-to-point transportation that offers it's an option that reduces traffic, reduces parking demand. It provides access to key destinations. It is affordable, and it's just an overall great active public transportation option that when it's too far to walk but too close to drive, it kind of fills that gap. So a little bit of history. City Council direction in 2019 was to regulate shared mobility and implement a bike share program. And it's mentioned in the general plan and the bicycle master plan. It offers a sustainable public transportation option. And B-Cycle began their pilot program in February of 2020.
And just for background, at the time, it was a competitive process for the operator, but ultimately B-Cycle was the one that was selected.
We chose B-Cycle because of their low profile and aesthetically pleasing docking system. It's an all-electric fleet with a pedal assist up to 17 miles per hour. And it is constantly illuminated at the front and with rear lights. Since the last TCC update in 2023, B-Cycle was acquired from Trek Bicycles to Bicycle Transit Systems, BTS, nationwide, including this city's program, and that was initiated on October 1st, 2024. Most recently, the city received a grant, the Clean Mobility Options Grant, which allowed us to expand by 60 e-bikes, 96 docks, and 19 stations. Its focus was in low-income communities per the AB 1550 definition, and it's included a variety of community outreach, including bilingual outreach, community events, and partner engagement, group rides. We did some door knocking, digital communications, and enrollment assistance for the bike share system, as well as promotion of the B-Cycle for All Pass, a pass that is for low-income persons, and that can be purchased at $25 plus tax for an annual membership. And just for context, that community engagement is supported by Move Santa Barbara County. On the right, we have some photos of some engagements that we've done. First on the left is the most recent. We had a Drag Me to Pride ride where B-Cycle bikes were available to participants who may not have a bike of their own to ride from BC Centro to the events. At the top right, we have move tabling at our Earth Day event with informational pamphlets, as well as our map of the expansion. And we also offered at that event temporary bike parking for B-Cycles so that people could ride and demo those there at the Earth Day event. To get a better understanding of where the expansion took place, this is a map of the expansion. All the orange dots are the new ones that were installed within the last, or by June 2nd, rather. And this...
They were installed, they began the installation in May of this year, and we're wrapped up within a month for the installations.
So they're all in.
And as of July 2026, this is the current network map. It includes 324 e-bikes, 654 docks, and a total of 103 stations. And I will hand it off to Joanne, Ms. Burgess, to discuss our metrics and operations. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. So over the last 5+ years, almost 6, we're going on 6, we've seen 130,600 riders travel almost 3 million miles on B-Cycle bikes, which is pretty incredible. So in the next 2 to 3 months, we're expecting that we will hit 3 million miles.
And then just for context too, is that we didn't start off with that many stations or docks. And so again, what we sort of expected to see was the upward trend, and we have between riders to miles driven or ridden over time, and has expanded on that curve as the network expands.
And here's kind of a visual representation of our top 20 performing stations. I know the font's really small, but they are all on Cabrillo or State Street. And if you can see the numbers on the right, those are the number of trips taken from each of these stations. So if a trip started at that location, that's how it gets counted and added to this list here. So Cabrillo and Chapala is our most popular station, with 37,000 trips originating from that location over the last 5 years. And rounding out the top 20 is the station at Sola and State with 15,000 trips originating from that location. Yeah. So we have seen that the vast majority of folks riding our bikes have a monthly membership. Second to that is an annual membership. And then these are kind of the days that we see folks riding based on what pass type they have. So as you can see, monthly members every day of the week really tops the list. And there's some fluctuation in casual pass riders. Casual pass riders for us means anyone who has not committed to a membership. So folks who have a guest pass or a single 30-minute ride pass. And you'll see those increase pretty greatly on the weekends, mostly on Saturdays and Sundays, of course, and then sometimes on Fridays we see a bit of an influx there. Next, Julia. Times a day when we see folks riding, mostly in commuter hours, particularly towards the end of the day. And again, annual and monthly members really kind of top the list, and you'll see that they're overwhelmingly the ones doing the most riding. Since the last update, our pricing has changed just a little bit. Our annual pass increased from, I believe it was around $150 at the time of the last update to $244.68. That does include tax already for unlimited 60-minute rides for a year. That's our annual pass. Our monthly pass has increased from $30 to $32.63. And we changed that from 30-minute unlimited rides to unlimited 60-minute rides. And we found that folks are much happier with that change. You can get most anywhere in Santa Barbara on a bike in 30 plus minutes. So giving them the additional 30 minutes definitely helps for sure. As Ms. Garcia mentioned, our low-income pass is $25 a year. Tax is not included in that shown here, but it comes out to about $27.19 annually for those who are eligible. And last July, we introduced the guest pass, which offers riders unlimited 60-minute rides for a 24-hour period, trying to target folks who maybe want to take more than one ride per day but don't want to commit to a longer pass. And then, of course, we kept our single 30-minute ride pass, which is our walk-up pass, at $8.70 for 30 minutes. And then that's a breakdown of who's taken trips over the last 2.5 years. No, coming up on 2 years exactly, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Since 2025, there have been 7 reported collisions to us, to B-Cycle. And here's kind of a breakdown of what those incidents look like. Generally, they are solo rider incidents, which is pretty consistent with the data around incidents with bikes. It tends to be that, unfortunately, when you're riding a bike, sometimes you just hit a bump, swerve, fall off, which is definitely better than having a collision with a driver, for sure. There is one incident on here that does include a driver. Someone was doored and unfortunately badly injured. But otherwise, we rarely see collisions. We rarely see injuries. At least they're not reported to us. So,
and from a staff perspective, this is because, as you know, with the Safe Streets for All Action plan, our primary data is looking at police records. And what's nice about the B-cycle program is there is another reporting method. So probably of this list, maybe one would have been documented in a police record for the ambulance ride on one of those. But so we have a little bit better idea. But in the context of the 2.8 million miles ridden, we would consider this extremely low. And some of the reasons we think is because these are speed governed e-bikes to 17 miles per hour. So I think that is an interesting information piece. Again, we have to look over years of data, but this is, again, with these particular public bike share bikes, collision very, very low.
Can I ask if you know where the dooring incident took place?
I don't have the exact location. I do know that one was reported to SBPD. I called for follow-up, but my call was not returned, so.
Yeah, we can follow up.
was
I don't
curious,
have
yeah.
the record.
No worries. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you want me to? Internally, just some info about our operations. Currently, we are operating with one diesel cargo van, one electric cargo van, and we use a cargo e-bike to conduct all of our field operations, which really consist of swapping bike batteries, dock batteries, doing small in-field repairs, daily safety checks, and moving bikes from location to location. Currently, we have about 9 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff. And with the company acquisition back in 2024, B-Cycle moved to Bicycle Transit Systems 4-day work week, which we love, and it improves work-life balance incredibly and reduces turnover. It's really hard to go back to 5 days after you've had 4 days. Yeah. You can move on. We are kind of trialing some different solutions to some issues that we have experienced with operating in the city. Cellular network connection is not fantastic in some places, and so we have recently started working with AT&T to test out the connection, especially along the beach, especially like if you go towards East Beach, it gets pretty poor in that direction for Verizon. The vast majority of our stations operate on the Verizon network. And we find that in most of the city that works pretty well. But especially for our first-time riders at the beach, it does cause a lot of frustration to be using the app on your phone to check out a bike and have it failed, like due to poor cell signal. So we have found some success with that, and hopefully we can use the results from these tests, in other places should we have, I guess, the same difficulties elsewhere. Some user error, especially with our first-time riders, that we have tried a couple different things to work through those issues. Some things work and some things haven't. So it's definitely something, again, that we will keep working on. In terms of the cell signal issues for folks who maybe live in an area with poor cell signal, we recommend that riders purchase a membership card or fob to kind of bridge the gap with the cell signal. It doesn't require a signal for you to use that fob. And we've seen great success with people making the switch from the app to the fob with regular checkouts. Makes it much quicker. So that's an option available for folks.
Like, where would you get your fob if you?
Oh, we have a form on our website that people can fill out, and then I mail them a fob. Yeah, it's real quick. and it has a little card in the mail too with some cute graphics. We can move on. Since 2021, so since launch, we've had 28 bikes stolen and more than 30 bike batteries stolen and a little over 120 bikes vandalized in a variety of ways. This is pretty consistent with other bike share systems, but I will say in terms of the number of bikes stolen, far and beyond, like way less than you would see in other cities. And yeah, I won't say anything more on that. Some improvements are coming to our bikes. So we are in the process, our product team is in the process of designing and building a new bike that will have an integrated battery that will pair with solar charging docks so that they get charged when they're not being used rather than our field technicians having to go out and change the batteries every day. A different orientation for the phone holder on the bike. Currently, the phone holders on the bike are in a landscape orientation, and most people use their phone in a portrait orientation, especially when getting navigation directions. So that change, I'm sure, will be welcome. And then, of course, brake improvements. You can't ever have brakes that are too good. So we look forward to that change as well. I can do it. You want me to do it?
Yeah, we'll turn it back to us. I just wanted to also add, just to put it into context, that no mode is immune of operational issues or city different modes of being susceptible to vandalism. So just, again, the big picture, put it in context from operations with your own private vehicle, where you always have to have continual maintenance, riding the bus and having bus passes and all of that. And so again, just in ride-share services, again, none of the modes are flawless. So I just wanted to reiterate that. But and then the point is too, like, to date, B-Cycle has been very responsive when we are trying to navigate the different issues. And again, like for the battery issue, oh yes, can we look to a future model that has an embedded bike battery, those types of things. So we appreciate B-Cycle continuing to work with staff and be solution oriented to really have the success. So with that, I'll have Julia reread the recommendation from the staff, and we appreciate Ms. Burgess joining us in the presentation today.
Thank you. And again, the recommendation today is that the Transportation and Circulation Committee receive an update of the bicycle share pilot program and recommend City Council approve initiating the transition of the bicycle share pilot program to a permanent program and authorize staff to begin the permitting and contract negotiation processes to have a seamless transition to a permanent program by January of 2028, the end of the pilot program. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, and thank you for joining us and presenting. Let's start with public comment, just since we're getting late here. Is there any in-person public comment?
We have one in-person speaker, Barry Remis, and no online speakers.
Cool.
Okay, now we're good. Hi, good evening. I wasn't planning to speak, but on behalf of our fellow MOVE co-workers, Martina Sexton and Hema Jimenez, who've been deeply involved with the city, with Ms. Garcia, and also with Ms. Burgess and B-Cycle through their Clean Mobility Options grant that the city received. We were engaged and still are engaged and look forward to continuing that relationship, helping out with engagement and outreach, specifically for the B-Cycle for All lower income membership. You might have recalled seeing from the slide that you saw about ridership and who has what levels. Sadly, the low income membership sees a very small percentage of the memberships that B-Cycle has annually, and we'd like to change that. The whole intent of the Clean Mobility Options grant was to be able to expand the network and be able to get the B-Cycle program into the neighborhoods. And we've been delighted to be able to help to do that, but there's a lot more work to be done. It's a 5-year grant, and we look forward to being able to continue our relationship there with achieving the goal of being able to bring the B-Cycle memberships to far more residents in the city, so that a lot of our locals who need the transportation, who don't have cars, and who need to be able to get to and from their work, their school, will be able to take advantage of this, because it's a shame that more people can't do that. So we look forward to that. And you've also seen the numbers here. The market for Santa Barbara has been overwhelmingly positive and successful. And so I think it's a no-brainer for you to make the determination and recommendation to council that this go to a permanent program. And then I didn't say at the last, but just regarding on the last item, the e-bike safety brochures that you're seeing here, those were all grant funded also and reviewed and approved with no changes from the Office of Traffic Safety. And they're, in addition to them going out through the schools, they're also being distributed through our e-bike retailers locally. So families go to Rad Power Bikes or e-bikes or some of the other retailers, and they buy a bike for their students, for their children. They're getting one of these so they can review it. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Move. Okay, back to the committee for questions and comments on this item. Okay, I saw Committee Member Smith first, and then we'll go to.
Yeah, I think it's great. Congratulations on having this thing work so well. Is there any information on finances? I mean, is the city supporting this effort at all, or?
For public bike share. And just for anything when you're looking at public transportation systems, it's the goal is to not be in the red.
Too much, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No,
and then to be operating for the operator enough to cover all of, again, the staffing necessary to support the program.
Since Hillary's gone, I will represent both of us. We both have been on the committee since before this program, since before 2019. And I just can't say enough about the progress and being on the ground floor and hearing them talk about different vendors and is this going to work and what are we going to do? It is, to me, spectacular how far it's come. It really, really is. And like I said, I was there on the ground floor, and Hillary and I have gotten to see all the progress, and I just want to say thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
I have a couple comments. Yeah, I think, and thank you for mentioning the B-Cycle for All progress. How long does that grant go, or when did it start? And
It goes through 2030.
okay.
And we were really just, again, for background on that, like when we first launched the program, the biggest part was just trying to get some stations and we, hit our biggest two active transportation neighborhoods was downtown and the waterfront, but there was still a gap of getting our residents to and from our also downtown and waterfront, which are our biggest employment areas as well, and really getting B-Cycle into the neighborhoods. And so with this grant, that enabled us to expand the stations.
Yeah, I think, so I was not on TCC at the time, but I actually was a representative on the committee that ended up picking B-Cycle as a vendor. And I, honestly, and I've said this before, I was really skeptical of it at the time. And I think my concern was kind of exactly what you just said, was the starting stations were just a stripe down State Street and along the beach. But it seemed like the purpose of the program and the pricing structure was really based on like resident daily transportation. And so I am glad that the program survived through that phase and is now adding these stations. Has been adding stations through the neighborhoods for a few years, but is now even adding them. I can see the expansion into the Lower East Side and some into the west side, and so that is great to see. And I do remember the B-Cycle for All has had, for the last several years, a pretty low pickup rate. And, I mean, if you look at where the stations have been, I think you see that it's just wasn't quite fitting the locations that some of those areas of the cities needed. So I think the program is continuing to improve and has evolved into the program that I think it was intended to be. And so if it's worked this long and is continuing to get better, then I assume it will continue to get better. And I've been happy to see where it's going. And so, yeah, I know how public transportation is financed and paid for is always kind of a question. But it looks like our recommendation is just to recommend that these contract negotiations move forward. And so I feel definitely comfortable with that.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, yeah, I think this is amazing. I love this program. I think it's seeing a lot of success. I'm really happy to see. I was at the ribbon cutting for the CMO expansion. That was really nice to see. I confess, though, I have yet to use B-Cycle, and because there is no station in my neighborhood, and that's Hidden Valley, and we've talked about this. There's that one station down Las Positas for some reason, but whatever we can do to fill in this western edge of the map. I mean, it's always my pet peeve when San Roque just gets deleted from the city itself, right? But I understand why. It's you got to start where the demand is highest, and then hopefully we'll bridge it out there over time. So whatever we can do to make that happen, I support. And then that's it. Yeah. Does anyone want to make the motion? I don't think we need to add any notes to this one, right? All right. Well, I'll make the motion for the staff recommendation to, where is it?
You can also
For the
say
staff
as outlined on
recommendation.
this.
As written.
As
Yeah.
written in the staff report.
All right.
Receive the update and recommend to the city council and